So welcome back to another episode, and yes, the episode is called I Did Something Crazy because I did something crazy, and I'm going to talk all about that today. But before I begin, I will ask you guys, have you ever done anything crazy to do with video games? Did you ever go out and buy something that was absolutely outrageous? You're like, this is crazy, I shouldn't be buying this, and you bought it anyways. Maybe it was a figure, maybe it was a collectible. Let me know down below. So to get to this crazy moment, we have to go 30 years into the past, and this story has to be told to get to this point. It was really relevant to the story, so please bear with me. 30 years ago, I was 21 years old. I just turned 21. I had gone to stay in England with my Nana at the time. She's long passed now. And I wanted to get away from Canada at that time because I was a teenager, I was kind of rebellious, and I didn't really like the way I was acting. And so my parents are like, do you want to go to England for a while to get away from, kind of my bad childhood friends and all that? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. So I went to stay there for quite some time. And I came back and I was a changed man. I've talked about it before. I discovered my local anime store. I started getting really back into anime, really started to get into video games even more than I already was. And it was really a renaissance of my life. I've always said that at 21, and I can't believe it's 30 years ago. It totally cooks my noodle. Anyways, here's the bit. I come back from England, and I'm back for a few weeks, and then I meet some girl. And we start dating, and it was really amazing. And she took me to a place that I'd never been to before. It was called Johan Center in Richmond here in Vancouver. And there's a lot of really amazing Asian malls in Richmond, and Johan Center was unbelievable. And so she took me there for the day. And we walked around and we went into this bookstore. It was a Chinese-run Japanese bookstore. And it was so cool because I walked in there and there was new type magazines and they sold everything, manga, everything. It was a big bookstore. And I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. And then I get little shivers from this. I still remember this moment. Then I look over on this shelf and I saw something that I could not believe. And that was this soundtrack right here for Chrono Trigger. Yes, and I gotta say something here. This was sitting up there and it was quite expensive. And I was like, I can't believe it because, listen to this, Chrono Trigger hadn't come out over here in North America yet. We were still at that point. And I saw the soundtrack available to buy. And I was crazy for video games. I loved Akira Toriyama. I loved Squaresoft. I loved RPGs. I was really looking forward to Chrono Trigger. So when I saw the soundtrack, it was like, wow, and this is before a time when there was the internet, like the way it is now. And I looked and I'm like, oh my God, because you couldn't download songs or anything like that back then. So this was a mystery package. And I was like, oh my God, the soundtrack, I've got to get that. And I ran up to it and I picked it up. Here's this copy right here. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, how much is this? And I look and it was $59 back in 1995. So you're looking and you're thinking, $59 for me back then. I mean, I had hardly any money. And the only money that I had, I spent that day on the Chrono Trigger soundtrack before the game had come out. And I went home and I put this in my CD player and I just listened to all 3 discs in a row. And I just I was imagining what the game was going to be because the game wasn't out. All I had to go on was the music. This was a time when it was very creative for me, where I'd just sit and draw, comics and whatever I wanted to do back then, anime characters, and I would just listen to video game music. And I would just listen to the Chrono Trigger soundtrack over and over, imagining, oh, this must be the battle music. This is some mysterious forest music. And my imagination was filling it all in until the game eventually came out over here. Then I'm like, oh no, I was wrong. That song is actually over here. But it was a magical time for me. And it was just unbelievable. It was just so cool to get this soundtrack back then. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I know, I just said it. 30 years has gone by. Where did the time go? And eventually, as I say, the game came out and I loved it. And that became a bit of a religion for a lot of people. So that brings us to now. I needed to give you the backstory on that because this is what I'm going to show today is unbelievably crazy. And it is, and I've got it right here, and I haven't taken it out of the box that it arrived in yet. I haven't done that, but I'm going to do that for you. And I'm going to explain what this is. This is a big moment. This is a crazy moment. And people will be like, what is this? Look at this. I'm going to take this out right now. As soon as I figure out how to take it out. Oh, I see. Right here. It's right at the bottom. It is the vinyl soundtrack for Chrono Trigger. An item that shouldn't exist. And get this, it doesn't exist. I'll show it to you this way. Here's the unboxing. It comes with a little pendant right there. And here are the record. These are the record cases, I believe. I'll open these up and show them as I'm talking. And these are the vinyl right here. All gold editions of this soundtrack. And what is this? People will be freaking out and they'll be like, what? I didn't know that existed. Where can I get this? Unfortunately, it's a bootleg. Isn't that crazy? It's a bootleg. It's a really amazing bootleg. And the reason why I picked it up is because there's no official release of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack on vinyl to buy. And that's the really sad thing about this, is that some of these companies, and this is the big rant that I want to get into today, some of these companies are sitting on gold. And there's a lot of you out there that just listen to digital music downloads, and you're like, I don't need vinyl. I don't want vinyl. I don't even want CDs. I don't even care. I just want it on my phone. I don't care about any of this. And for all of you out there that think like that, I totally understand. But for me, I'm from a time of physical media, and this stuff means something to me. This soundtrack means something to me. 30 years later, I can hold it in my hands, and I'm like, I can hold that memory, and I can hold all that music and remember it all very, very well. And the introduction of video game soundtracks on vinyl has reinvigorated myself into the love of video game music. And I know it's not for everybody. People are like, what? And I tell you, if you had taken young John all those years ago and said, hey, when I picked this soundtrack up, hey, in the future, you'll want to get the vinyl. And I'll be like, what? Why would I want to get a vinyl when we finally moved on to CDs? Like we've done that big jump from, tapes to CDs, and then obviously to digital. Why would I want to go backwards in time? There's just something tangible about holding a big soundtrack in your hand of some music that you really, really love. And I want to say something here, and I brought some examples. There's been plenty of soundtracks released officially, like the Streets of Rage soundtrack, which I have listened to way too much. And the Mega Man Legends soundtrack. These are just a few that I just want to bring up. And the Castlevania 2 soundtrack. Every Halloween I put this on. It's part of my little list of vinyl I put on. And Yes, the Mother 2 Earthbound soundtrack, just gold stuff. I love this one a lot. I'm just bringing up a few here, a couple of real bangers. The Skies of Arcadia soundtrack, Eternal Arcadia. Yes, this is a big one, and I love this music so much. Came out on the Dreamcast. And another game, here we go. I haven't opened this up because it's just so gorgeous. I love this one. Grandia, the Memorial soundtrack. I got all of the CDs of it as well, and I've listened to this soundtrack for way too many years, and I adore it. And so, yes, there's been a lot of official releases of vinyl, and I really appreciate that, and I always support that. But it's so fascinating for those of us that like vinyl soundtracks and video game soundtracks on vinyl, which is, I know it's a niche bunch of us, but I think we are very hardcore about it and we really enjoy it. That there's a lot of soundtracks that we're still really waiting for. Like for Square to go back into its back catalog and release things like Final Fantasy Tactics on vinyl. That would be heavenly. Or the big one, Xenogears. I would buy it in an instant. And there is so many of us that would do that because we're big fans of those old games and we want to support the companies. We really, really do. And so, what is the Chrono Trigger soundtrack? Where did this come from? This is a strange rabbit hole that I've gone on the last couple of years only. I guess years ago, there was a few people, I don't know quite the backstory, they called themselves Moonshake, a vinyl little company, and they were creating bootlegs of video game soundtracks. And then they got shut down, and that was the end of them. And then I've gone on to eBay, and here's where the rabbit hole went. On eBay, if you type in eBay, not Moonshake, all of a sudden you will see so many vinyl soundtracks for video games that had small print runs, not by that original company, but by different groups, and I can't even keep track of it all. It's something that I tried to do a lot of research for this, and I was like, this is really complicated, and there's a lot of rabbit holes, and so I'm still learning about this stuff as well. And so, yeah, there's a lot of soundtracks out there that are on vinyl that are bootlegs of the originals and that had a small print run, and some of them are astronomical in price, and they've gone up, they're crazy prices. And yeah, this was not cheap for me, but here's where I justify it. I wanted to get this because I adore the video game so much, and it means so much to John at 21 as much as it does to John at 51. I'm somebody who doesn't just buy this and put it away. I did, yes, with the Grandia one. I haven't opened that one up yet. I'll grant you that. But most of my vinyl, probably I'd say 90%, is opened and listened to on a regular basis. And this is something I don't mention a lot, is that I sit and draw with my daughter for hours at a time. Not 1 hour, but we'll sit and draw for like 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, and I'll put on vinyl soundtracks and just let it be the ambience of the background. And so I'm not trying to get her into like video game soundtracks. It's not my thing. It's just something that's relaxing, and she likes the soundtrack. She loves it. She's like, oh, Daddy, I love this song. I'm like, that's cool. And we just have a great time. So vinyl is something that's really kind of a part of my life and something that I really, really enjoy. I'm telling you, I'm saying to Square, this is a call out to them, release your old video games on vinyl like this. Yes, I know they've done it with some of them, with like Final Fantasy X and things like that, and Final Fantasy VII and Rebirth, but I would just love it if they went into their backlog and release a lot of the titles that they have there. There's money to be printed, folks, and I'd be the first one to buy Chrono Trigger again on vinyl, an official release. And it just shows that I had to go to this extent to get it because there is no official release. And I think this version and the way it looks is better than I think that they would probably actually do. These have been made by fans, and I have a few other ones. Look at this. Here is the Link to the Past soundtrack right here. No official release by Nintendo, but it's brought out by fans who love the original game so much. And they didn't get into this for making a lot of money. They got into this because they love the games and they wanted to present the soundtracks in a way that they would like to see them. And that's what I found out. A lot of these groups that make this stuff are just hardcore fans like me and you. And they just wanted the soundtracks to be released. Like things like this. The Secret of Mana soundtrack. Very important soundtrack from myself and my friend Andrew. And I know my friend Andrew's gonna be watching this going, oh my God, you have that on vinyl? I can't wait to come over. I know, Andrew. Next time you come over, we'll pop it in. And like, look at this. Some things like this. The Legend of Zelda 2 soundtrack. And here's another one. This is a great one. The Final Fantasy 1 soundtrack. Oh, lots of memories. Sometimes they use the picture ones, and people taught me this. When they use the pictures on the discs themselves, sometimes you get cracks and pops as you're listening to the album. I could never figure that out. And so I like vinyl that are just black. That's fine. That's the way I like it. Just perfect. Or some multicolor versions, that's fine too. The love and caring, like for Capcom, release this officially. Release this officially. We got Ghouls and Ghosts and Super Ghouls and Ghosts in this. Two of my favorite games ever. Love these games. Grew up with them on the Genesis and Super Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, this is a plea to the companies to officially release this stuff on vinyl for their backlogs. And I can guarantee it will make you money. And so people and hardcore fans like myself don't have to go onto eBay and get bootleg copies of soundtracks. That's crazy that we have to do that, but here we are. And yes, it was a crazy one for me to do, to get the Chrono Trigger vinyls, but this is one that's with me for the rest of my life. Hopefully I'm alive for more than a few more years, that I can listen to this over and over and over again, and I cannot wait to listen to this. I'm so excited. And as I say, it was 30 years ago that John walked into that Chinese-Japanese bookstore and picked up Chrono Trigger, and here I am 30 years later. I'm buying the same soundtrack again because I love it. Because I love the soundtrack, and I love the game, and I love the representation of that time period on the Super Famicom and Super Nintendo. Guys, have you ever bought anything that is absolutely crazy? Can you justify it like I tried to do? Let me know down below. So anyways, guys, until next time.